Good morning, church. We're going to take a break today from our journey through the book of Acts, and we're going to talk about back to the building. By now, I suspect that everyone has heard we'll be resuming in-person worship on June 7th. We've sent out our reopening guidelines, and all of those guidelines reflect our desire to keep people as safe as possible as we return to in-person worship. Last week, my daughter sent some images that tell a very important truth that we cannot forget as we come back together to the building. Now, here's the first image. And by the way, they're called memes these days. Now, for those of you listening just to the audio, this is just a slide with words, and the words say this. Just to be clear, the church has not been closed, so it doesn't need to be reopened. We have simply stopped worshiping in our buildings for a time to protect the health and well-being of our people in our communities. The church does not require a building in order to be the church. What is required is love, compassion, and the presence of God. Now here's the second image, and the title is, Which is a Picture of the Church? And on the left, there's a traditional church building, and on the right, a group of people. And lower it says this, the church is open. The buildings are closed for the safety of all of us. We love you too much to put you at risk. We've been saying that for about 2 months now. Church doesn't depend on a location or a building to be the church. We are the church. We don't need a building, but it sure does come in handy every once in a while. And so with a little bit of fear and trepidation, by and large, our worship will resume as usual. We'll sing, we'll pray, we'll share communion together, we'll give our tithes and offerings and endure a hopefully encouraging sermon. But for the time being, we're going to have to learn to greet one another from a distance. Yeah, sorry, no hugs, no back rubs, no handshakes. The new norm is going to be some masks, social distancing, disinfecting everything before and after. That'll be a change for a while. But you know, one thing we have learned during our period away from the building, we've learned that online worship will never replace what the church is at its very soul and heart. Now, online worship will always be a very valuable tool for the church, but what the church truly is, people loving other people in the very presence of God, that's going to be here forever. Now, what's really ironic about this is that on the same day we sent out our reopening guidelines, Tom, one of our elders, sent me a blog by Carrie Newhoff called The Idiot's Guide to Reopening the Church. Now, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, and you really have to love satire to appreciate it, but it is a positive way of describing how to go back to church safely. Download a copy of it and read it. It's good. All right, here's my point. Growing up and going to seminary in the heart of Appalachia, I learned the unwritten rule that you don't talk about a man's religion or his politics. And as a pastor, I got to tell you, I have violated that rule on occasion, but always with gentleness and always very tactful. Because I realize the passion, dare I even say the anger, that politics and religion bring out in people. For example, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, I want to really emphasize a point that Newhoff makes. This is a quote from him. One of the best ways to instantly alienate half the people you're trying to reach is to make the gospel partisan. In other words, the reopening of our buildings is becoming entirely too political. And it's not helping the church to see brothers and sisters criticizing and judging one another. You know, coming back to the church, coming back to the building, is not going to solve all the problems in the church. In fact, there will most likely be new problems that right now, today, we can't even anticipate. These are and will continue to be difficult times, and opinions will differ, but the Bible speaks to this issue in a very strong way. Ben sent me these verses a few days ago, and I think they're right on the money, and I want you to look at them with me this morning. But before I read the passage, I need to set it up a little bit for you so you don't think they're talking about the Food Channel. All right. Go back to the days of the early church. Most of the pagans are still offering animal sacrifices on a daily basis as part of their pagan religion. So after you go to a pagan temple and you do your sacrifice thing and you do your religious thing, well, you don't get to take the beef back home because you've given that to a pagan god, and so the remains stay at the pagan temple. Now, if you were running or if you were in charge of a pagan temple, what would you do with all of this meat? Well, yeah, you'd sell it to the local meat market. And believe it or not, one of the greatest debates in the early church was incredibly simple. Can a Christian buy a pound of hamburger that had been offered as a sacrifice to a pagan god the day before? Now, here's Paul's advice, and I think it's good advice for us to listen to this morning as well. He reads, "Except the one whose faith is weak, without quarreling over disputable matters. One person's faith allows them to eat anything, but another whose faith is weak eats only vegetables. The one who eats everything must not treat with contempt the one who does not. And the one who does not eat everything must not judge the one who does, for God has accepted them." Here's the heart. "Who are you to judge someone else's servant? To their own master, servants stand or fall." Kind of politely telling us that it's not our job to be judge and jury of our brothers and sisters. He ends the passage like this: "You then, why do you judge your brother or sister? Or why do you treat them with contempt? For we will all stand before God's judgment seat. So then each of us will give an account of ourselves to God." Look, there have always been matters of opinion even in the church. And it's time for us to practice one of the great mottos that the Christian church has expressed from the very beginning of our movement. It's simple. It goes like this: in essentials, unity; in opinions, liberty; in all things, love. Or as P.H. Welshamer, the pastor of the Canton Christian Church, said to a former generation, "We will agree to disagree without becoming disagreeable." Welcome back to the church. I am excited about seeing everyone again. I'm excited, believe it or not, about the new normal, whatever that happens to turn out to be. But whatever we do when we come back together and in the months ahead, let's agree we're going to do church a little bit better than ever. Would you pray with me? Father, watch over us as we come back together. As we come back into the building, keep us safe. Give us the wisdom to make the right decisions. Father, protect the precious unity that exists in the family of God. Father, help us to become Christians who agree to disagree without becoming disagreeable. And help us understand that opinions Everybody has one. We all deserve ours. But the most important thing is love. Through Jesus I pray. Amen.